People in Riverside Falls often said my family was the picture of perfection. The Harlans, always smiling in photos, waving to neighbors, hosting barbecues with matching aprons. To everyone else, we were harmony in human form. But I knew the truth behind the photographs. We looked perfect, because I made sure we did. I'm Elena Harlan, 28 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one who kept everything running, the invisible architect of our family's peace. My younger sister, Sophia, 4 years younger than me, was the star everyone adored. She was lively, spontaneous, the one who drew attention wherever she went. I was the quiet shadow who cleaned up after her storms, the one who turned chaos into calm. When Sophia announced her engagement to Alex, her longtime boyfriend, I didn't hesitate for a second. "Let me plan it," I told her. "My gift to you." Planning events was my passion, my small creative escape from routine. I imagined a spring wedding by the riverside, delicate lavenders and golds, strings of soft lights swaying with the evening breeze. Sophia squealed with excitement, hugging me tightly. "You always turn chaos into magic, Elena. I don't know what I'd do without you." At the time, I thought it was love. Later, I realized it was convenience. 4 months, my modest apartment transformed into a studio of dreams. Swatches of silk and lace spilled over the couch. Flower catalogs and menu sheets littered the floor. I stayed up past midnight perfecting seating charts, sampling pastries, and calling vendors until my phone battery died. My coffee table disappeared beneath piles of color palettes and fabric samples. I was exhausted, but fulfilled. My parents, Robert and Susan, boasted about me to everyone. "Our talented daughter is planning Sophia's big day all by herself," they'd say proudly, never once offering help. They saw me as dependable, unshakable, tireless. And maybe I was, until that night. It was a Tuesday evening, 5 days before the wedding. I returned home earlier than usual, the smell of dinner drifting through the hall. As I approached the living room, I heard my father's voice, calm and casual. "There's no need to pay for a babysitter," he said. "Elena can handle the kids. That'll save a good bit." My mother's laughter followed. "Of course. She's great with children, and she doesn't have much else going on anyway." Sophia chimed in, cheerful and dismissive. "Yeah, she won't mind. She always helps." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard them. But their conversation continued, about how they'd put me in charge of a dozen restless children during the reception, so everyone else could enjoy the night undisturbed. I stood frozen, my heart pounding as their words sank in. I wasn't a cherished daughter or sister. I was the help. A slow, hollow ache spread through me. Without saying a word, I climbed the stairs to my room and sat on the bed, staring at my wedding planner binder, a thick book filled with every detail I'd lovingly crafted. The sight of it made my chest tighten. Every color scheme, every deposit, every late-night call, all of it had been for people who saw me as nothing more than a convenience. Sleep evaded me that night. I lay awake, watching the ceiling fan whirl in lazy circles, the sound of its blades echoing my thoughts. I thought about all the times I'd cleaned up Sophia's messes, taken blame for her mistakes, covered for her missed chores, her forgotten promises. I thought about every thank you that was just a habit, never gratitude. By morning, I didn't feel angry anymore, just hollow. I brewed my coffee, answered work emails, and pretended everything was normal. But inside, something had changed. I couldn't unhear their laughter, couldn't forget the ease with which they dismissed my life. That afternoon, I met my best friend, Mia, at our usual spot, a cozy cafe by the river called Willow Brew. She was an artist, sharp and outspoken, everything I wasn't. The moment she saw me, she frowned. "You look like you've been hit by a truck. What happened?" I told her everything, the endless hours of planning, the overheard conversation, the babysitter comment that still rang in my ears. She listened silently, her eyes narrowing with every word. When I finished, she leaned forward. "Elena," she said quietly, "that's not love. That's taking advantage." I gave a weak laugh. "It's fine. That's my role, right? The fixer." Her gaze hardened. "Then stop fixing. Let them crumble without you." Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. Maybe because deep down, I knew she was right. That evening, back at home, I stared again at the binder. On its cover, in neat gold letters, I had written, "Sophia Harlan Wedding." I ran my hand over the smooth surface and then, slowly, tore the cover off. The sound was sharp, final. I opened my laptop. My hands were steady, too steady. The first number I dialed was the caterer's. "Hi, this is Elena Harlan," I said calmly. "Please cancel the order for the Harlan wedding this weekend." The manager hesitated. "But the deposit? Send the bill to Robert Harlan," I interrupted, my tone even. I hung up before guilt could whisper otherwise. Next came the florist, the decorator, the lighting crew, the rental company. One by one, I dismantled the entire event I'd built with my own hands. Every click, every confirmation felt like a piece of my old self falling away. When it was done, I sat there in silence. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't heavy. It was freeing. I picked up my phone, opened a travel app, and booked a room at the Riverside Retreat, a beautiful little hotel overlooking the Willow River. 2 nights, I murmured to myself. Just me. A strange calm settled over me. I forwarded every vendor email to my father with a brief note: "Please handle all future matters yourself." No explanations. No apologies. Then I packed a small suitcase, grabbed my car keys, and left. The sky was brushed with gold as I drove out of town, the river glimmering beside the road. With every mile, I felt lighter. When I arrived at the hotel, the receptionist smiled. "Welcome, Ms. Harlan. Enjoy your stay." I smiled back. "I intend to." The room was perfect. Soft lighting, a view of the river, the scent of fresh linen. I sank into the bed and exhaled deeply. For the first time in my life, I wasn't responsible for anyone's happiness, but my OWN.AS night settled. My phone buzzed with messages. Sophia asking about the table linens, my mother wondering where the band was, my father's short, commanding text: "Be at the pavilion by dawn." No delays. I turned the phone face down. I ran a hot bath, poured myself tea, and watched the reflection of the moon ripple on the water's surface. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel anger. Just peace. Tomorrow would bring chaos back home, but it wasn't my chaos anymore. That night, I slept soundly, free at last from the invisible chains I'd carried my whole life. The morning of the court hearing arrived like a storm disguised as sunlight. Harlow's County Courthouse stood proud and solemn, its brick walls catching the early rays of dawn as if bracing for what was to come. I parked the car, took a deep breath, and glanced at my mother beside me. She looked smaller than ever, her frail hands clutching a folded tissue, but her eyes, those same eyes that once looked down at me with fear, now held a quiet strength. "Are you ready, Mom?" I asked softly. She nodded. "I've been ready for years, Ethan. I just didn't know how to say it." Inside, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Familiar faces from town sat in the benches, whispering stories they thought they knew. The sight made my stomach tighten. In small towns, gossip spreads faster than truth. But today wasn't about them. It was about my mother, about giving her the voice she'd been denied for so long. Marcus Hale, our attorney, greeted us at the table with a calm smile. "We have everything we need. Just stay composed." He turned to my mother. You're the truth in this room, Elena. Don't let him take that from you again. When Victor entered, the air changed. He walked in like he still owned the world, dressed sharply, but with a hollow arrogance that didn't fit him anymore. His eyes met mine briefly, cold and hard, before sliding to my mother. You really want to do this? He muttered loud enough for us to hear. After everything? My mother didn't reply. She simply straightened her back, lifted her chin, and faced forward. That quiet defiance was louder than any shout. The hearing began. Marcus presented our evidence, photos of injuries, the medical reports Dr. Hayes had prepared, and statements from neighbors who had heard years of shouting and crashes through thin walls. Every detail felt like reopening an old wound, but each one brought light into the darkness my father had built around us. Victor's lawyer, Derek Voss, was as slippery as they came. He painted my mother as emotionally unstable, accused me of using police influence to fabricate evidence. At one point, he even implied my mother's injuries were self-inflicted for attention. The words made my blood boil. I gripped the table so tightly my knuckles turned white. But Marcus's calm voice anchored me. We don't argue with shadows, he whispered. Then came the moment that broke and rebuilt me all at once, my mother's testimony. She stood, walked slowly to the stand, and swore the oath with trembling fingers. For a moment, she was silent. Then she began to speak. She didn't cry. Her voice was steady, fragile at first, then gaining strength with each sentence. She talked about the early days of their marriage, the charm that masked control, the slow erosion of her confidence. She spoke of nights when silence was safer than truth, mornings when she pretended everything was fine for my sake. She looked at Victor and said, "You taught me to fear, but my son taught me to be brave." Even the judge leaned forward. You could feel the weight of every word. When Victor took the stand, his mask slipped. His voice rose, his temper flared, and the calm courtroom became a battlefield of old wounds. "She's lying," he shouted. She always needed someone to blame. But his anger only confirmed everything my mother had said. The truth was undeniable now, written in his every movement. By the time the judge announced the verdict, voiding the coercive contracts, granting my mother half the assets, and issuing a restraining order, the courtroom was silent. My father's face twisted in disbelief. "This is injustice," he roared, slamming his hand on the table. Officers moved in quickly, guiding him out as his curses echoed behind him. Outside, sunlight poured over the courthouse steps. My mother took a long breath, her shoulders trembling with release. "It's over," she whispered. I smiled through the sting of tears. "No, Mom. It's just beginning." For the first time in decades, she was free. The weeks that followed were like learning to breathe again. My mother moved in with us permanently, settling into the rhythm of our family life on Willow Street. Sophia treated her like her own mother, and Lily adored her company. I often came home to find them in the garden, Lily chasing butterflies while my mother watered the flowers, her laughter light and new. Healing came slowly, but it came. There were mornings when I'd see her staring at the horizon, lost in thought. I never interrupted those moments. I knew she was making peace with the years she'd lost. Meanwhile, news about my father spread through Harlow. His reputation crumbled. Brooke, the woman he had left my mother for, disappeared from town not long after. Rumor had it she'd run off with another man, leaving Victor alone in the decaying house that had once been our home. I told myself I didn't care, but late at night, I found myself wondering how a man could destroy everything and still look at himself in the mirror. Months passed. I poured myself into my work, finding new meaning in every case that crossed my desk. Whenever I helped someone escape a situation that reminded me of my mother's, it felt personal. Justice had become more than my job, it was my redemption. Then, one evening, as summer faded into autumn, I got a call that shattered the fragile calm. There had been an incident at a local apartment complex, a woman found lifeless, signs of violence, and a witness who had seen Victor nearby. My stomach sank. Brooke's name was mentioned, the world seemed to tilt.